T-Mac the Great, thank you. Just watching you as a kid helped me get to where I am today. Good luck in the future. Special shout out to one of the best to ever do it in my eyes. Shout out to T-Mac on a great career, one of the most talented players ever in the NBA. He was good, very, very talented. Definitely was on the level of Kobe and Jordan at one point in time. Tracy might have, in that effect, been the hardest matchup. He could do just about everything on offense. By now, I'm sure you can probably see where this is going. If you were able to see T-Mac in his prime, then you'd know that he was without a doubt one of the best players in the league, and people were even going as far to say that he was better than Kobe Bryant at one point. He would consistently find himself at the top of the league when it came to scoring, and just all-around talent. But he wouldn't find himself in deep playoff pushes for reasons that we'll talk about later, with people saying that he had the skill set to become one of the greatest players of all time. And so, what happened? Well, today, we're going to be talking about T-Mac's career, some unlucky things that have happened in his career, and ultimately, we're going to be looking at how much better he could have been if he was able to play longer. But before we begin, if you're new here, I'm Double D. I'm a huge basketball fan and I make NBA videos here on YouTube. So if you're also an NBA fan, or just a basketball fan in general, feel free to hit the sub button and click the bell to be notified when I upload more videos just like this one. Alright, let's get into the video.
With the 9th pick in the 1997 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Tracy McGrady from Mount Zion Christian Academy.
Is McGrady ready? This is actually a question that a lot of people had because you have to remember that he was picked straight out of high school just 1 year after Kobe was drafted, and just a few months after the infamous game where he shot 4 air balls. So he hadn't broken out yet, and so there was really no telling what we were going to get with T-Mac. But Tracy McGrady was taken with the 9th pick in the 1997 draft, and got playtime in his rookie year, but not as much as he would have liked.
But your best move, Zeke, was firing that coach my rookie year. Firing that coach my rookie year that criticized me, said I wasn't going to be in the league beyond 3 years. Was he wrong? Boy, was he wrong. Boy, was he wrong.
He played 64 games his rookie season and started 17 of those games, but in those games he would only average 7 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. But just the next offseason, we would see the Raptors draft future All-Star and Hall of Famer Vince Carter, who, oddly enough, is actually T-Mac's cousin. Fun fact. But anyway, he would come in and immediately start making noise, as just in his rookie season he would average 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists and shoot 45% from the field. But this would cause T-Mac to take a back seat to him, and all this would do is decrease his playtime. He went from starting 17 games in his rookie year to starting just 2 in his sophomore season. He went from averaging 7 points to 9 points, and would become a shadow of the human highlight reel Vince Carter. Their last season together, Vince Carter would average 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists and shoot almost 47% from the field and 40% from 3 in just his second season, while T-Mac would average just 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists while starting in just 34 out of the 79 games he played. And they would eventually be swept out of the playoffs by Patrick Ewing's Knicks. In the 2000 offseason, T-Mac would leave the Raptors to go to Orlando, in a move that he would later admit to regretting, but this move would also see him almost instantly transform into a superstar in the league. In his first season with the Magic, he would average 27 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists while shooting 45% from the field and 35.5% from 3. And he would make his first All-Star team and win Most Improved Player. But this is also where his misfortunes start. Also in the 2000 offseason, we would see the Detroit Pistons sign and trade Grant Hill to the Magic in return for Ben Wallace and Chucky Atkins. And this is expected to be a superstar duo when they teamed up. Unfortunately, we would never get to see this duo at their full potential, or even a fraction of it, because Grant Hill would spend the next 4 years struggling with injuries, and actually only played 47 games over the 4 seasons that T-Mac was in Orlando. So what people thought would be a superstar duo turned into T-Mac surrounded by a subpar roster. But in these seasons, we would see him put up some of the best numbers of his career, and started the discussions of who is better, Kobe or T-Mac. because in his 4 seasons with Orlando, he would average 28 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.5 steals, while shooting 44.6% from the field and 36.1% from 3. Out of those 4 seasons, he would win scoring titles in 2003 and 2004, averaging 32 points in 2003 and 28 points in 2004. And you also have to remember that this is during a period where the pace was at one of its lowest points in NBA history, at just around 90 shots and 94 points per game. So the fact that he even put up numbers like this is just incredible. And these are just the numbers. This doesn't take into account him being one of the most difficult players to guard in NBA history. People have described him as having the skill set of Kobe Bryant, but slightly more efficient and 3 inches taller. So why isn't he mentioned with the greats that often? Well, that's where his story takes a turn, because while he did put up unbelievable numbers for his time in Orlando, he also couldn't get out of the first round. In the 2001 playoffs, the Magic would face the Milwaukee Bucks, who almost made the finals, losing in 7 games to the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals. But in this series, Team Magic would average 34 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and almost 2 steals, shooting 41% from the field. He averaged over 20 points more than Darrell Armstrong, who was the second highest scorer for Orlando in that series. But the Magic would lose that series 3-1, because back then the first round was best of 5. But this would become a pattern for them, as they would lose in the first round of the 2002 and 2003 playoffs, and not even make the playoffs in 2004. In the playoffs with Orlando overall, he averaged 32 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 6 assists. However, he was still a problem in the regular season, as he put up his career high of 62 points on March 10th, 2004 against the Wizards. But again, they wouldn't even make the playoffs this season, winning just 21 games. So in the 2004 offseason, he would end up being traded from Orlando to Houston. The Magic would trade T-Mac, Tyronn Lue, and Juwan Howard, and get Steve Francis, Cuttino Mobley, and Kelvin Cato in return. So now another expected superstar duo in T-Mac and Yao Ming. But of course, what do you think happened here? That's right, injuries. Goodness, this guy was unlucky. But in the 04-05 season, we would see the last fully healthy versions of both Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady that we would ever see. And his 78 games played that season would end up being the most he plays for a season in the rest of his career. But this would also be the season where he would do the unthinkable. 13 points in 33 seconds.
He did not get that play correct out of the timeout, and Popovich obviously upset with Manu.
Here's McGrady for 3. 35 seconds to go. Spurs now lead by 7. Rockets looking for a quick shot. Bowen is all over McGrady. Foul is picked up. It's a potential 4-point play. Tracy McGrady from downtown. And Barrett can't find anybody. They have no timeouts remaining. Finally gets it in to McGrady. McGrady over Bowen for 3. Yes! Yes! Tracy McGrady. Yao Ming on the inbounds. Trying to make things difficult for Brent Barry. Gets it in. Kevin Brown lost it. Here comes McGrady. No timeouts remaining. McGrady for the win. Yes! 1.7 to go. San Antonio with no timeout. Here's Parker. And the Rockets steal a game.
Overall, T-Mac averaged 26 points in the regular season and 30 points in the playoffs before, once again, losing in the first round in 7 games to the 58-win Dallas Mavericks. But this is where his downfall starts. In the 05-06 season, he would play in just 44 games due to problems with his back, which at one point actually got so bad that he needed to be stretchered off the court. And these back problems would ultimately be the end of his career, as he would either play in fewer games or play at less than half the level he once did, or both, in every following season, before retiring at just the age of 32. He would play his last season with Atlanta, where he would play in 52 games and average just 5 points in 16 minutes. And so, that's the unfortunate story of Tracy McGrady's career. The guy who was supposed to be one of the greatest players ever turned out to be one of the most forgotten players, as people would end up questioning why he even got into the Hall of Fame. That's terrible, but at the same time it's not really his fault, it's just the basketball gods being cruel. Overall, in his career, he ended up with 7 All-Star selections, 7 All-NBA selections, with 2 of those being first teams, 2 scoring titles, and 1 Most Improved Player in 2001. So with all that being said, you might be wondering how different his career might have turned out if he was able to play it out until the end. Well, let's find out. Okay, so for starters, I'm going to be basing everything here off of Kobe's career, since they were so similar in their playstyles and just had similar starts to their careers and similar primes. So in T-Mac's prime, which I would consider to be from 2000 to 2007, he averaged 26.9 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 5.4 assists. And just to be clear, we're leaving efficiency out of this because it is much harder to predict efficiency than it is to predict averages. But in Kobe's prime, which I would consider to be from 2000 to 2013, he averaged 27.8 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 5.2 assists. Alright, so here are our baselines. In Kobe's last few seasons, he averaged 18.9 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. So if we do the math here, we would see that this is a 32% decrease in scoring, a 22.8% decrease in rebounds, and a 25% decrease in assists. Let's say, hypothetically, his prime lasted until around 2011, and he played, say, 4 seasons afterwards. If we applied the same decrease to his numbers, then we would see Tracy McGrady average 18.3 points, 5.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists in his final years. If he played 70 games per season, which is the average amount of games he played per season during his prime, but if he played that plus, say, 65 games per year in his last 4 seasons, based on these numbers, we would have seen Tracy McGrady play around 1,287 games. That's up from 938, and he'd finish his career with 28,783 points, 7,788 rebounds, and 5,965 assists for his career, which would be 22.4 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 4.6 assists averages. This would put him as the 8th highest scorer in NBA history, and about 200 points ahead of Shaq. He would be 3rd in guards behind Kobe and Jordan. But this isn't all, because with the extended prime and career, you would also have to think that he would have added more All-Star selections and All-NBA First Team selections to his resume, maybe even another scoring title. But him being in the West, it would be difficult to see him winning maybe more than 1 or 2 rings just due to the amount of talent you have to deal with. The Suns, the Mavericks, and of course the Spurs, and the Lakers coming in later. But you could probably expect him and the Rockets to give them a decent fight even if they don't end up winning, which is another thing that could end up pushing him up in all-time spots. He probably could have already won an MVP in Orlando if his teams won more games. And so, with this new hypothetical career, we can expect that the Rockets would probably be near the top of the conference almost every year, which would no doubt win him at least 1 MVP in my opinion, or at least put him in the competition. But all that being said, this is probably the most I've ever talked about a hypothetical, but it's for a good reason. I mean, this guy was set to become one of the greatest players of the 2000s, just to have his career derailed by injuries. And while we could sit here and explain all the misfortunes of his career, we could also look back at when he was a top player in the league and what his career might have been. But at the end of the day, reality is still reality, and despite all this, he still found himself inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 2017. But if he actually ended up being able to stay healthy, then I would have no problem believing that he could have ended up being a top 10 player of all time. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I spent a lot of time on it, so I would really appreciate it if you left a like, and hit the sub button, also the bell. Comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
That's the question.
Now that you know him, has he ever, I mean, please, he has a cup of coffee and keeps score about who finishes
If he was
first.
keeping score, I wasn't keeping score. But this
11-3.
what?
11-3.
I
This is
don't
11-3.
remember that.
I'm not
You
going to pull a
can't-
number out of thin air. I remember specifically.
You can't believe the guy that doesn't even know the location where we were playing at.
It's a different country,
All right.
but that's
Yeah,
fine.
different country.
Now,
Right.
forget
This
my
was, by the
memory
way,
because
21
we
years
jumped
ago.
a lot
You know
of
what
different
I'm saying?
countries.
Yes.
Now,
one
the
trip.
country may be off. Now, I may forget a lot of things.
You forgot where we played.
One
at.
thing I'm not going to forget is the score.
It wasn't 11-3.
Oh, it was. It's okay, though.
No, it wasn't.
It's all right,
11-3.
man. You had an off day. It's okay. It
You know,
happens.
Germany, Paris, 11-3.
Whatever.
I had an off day, man. You know, it happens to the best of us, man.
So
it
you
didn't happen to me that day.
I hear you. It wasn't 11-3 though.